The prestigious Thornfield Concert Hall buzzed with anticipation. As 38-year-old, Marcus Chen finished polishing the brass fixtures on the grand stage. His olive-green custodial uniform and cleaning supplies marked him as part of the maintenance crew, nearly invisible to the elegantly dressed patrons, who would soon fill the red velvet seats for the evening's gala performance. Marcus had been working as a janitor at Thornfield for 2 years, a job that allowed him the flexibility to pick up his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, from school and be home with her in the evenings. The work was honest and steady, paying enough to cover their modest apartment and Emma's needs. Though it was a far cry from the life he had once imagined for himself. Tonight was the annual Thornfield Foundation Gala, a black tie fundraising event that brought together the city's wealthiest philanthropists, business leaders and cultural elite. The hall gleamed under the warm stage lights as Marcus made his final preparations, ensuring that every surface was perfect for the distinguished guests who would arrive within the hour. As Marcus cleaned around the concert grand piano that dominated the center of the stage, he could not help but pause and look at the magnificent instrument. The Steinway's polished black surface reflected the stage lights like a mirror, and Marcus felt the familiar ache of longing that he had learned to suppress over the years. "Almost finished there, Marcus?" called out James Wellington, the 52-year-old CEO of Wellington Industries and chairman of the Thornfield Foundation Board. Wellington wore an impeccably tailored black tuxedo and carried himself with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to commanding attention in any room he entered. "Yes, sir, Mr. Wellington," Marcus replied, stepping back from the piano. "Everything should be ready for tonight's performance." Wellington approached the stage, checking his gold watch with the practiced air of someone whose time was measured in millions of dollars. "Excellent. The maestro should be arriving shortly for his sound check." As Wellington spoke, several other board members and major donors began filtering into the hall for the pre-event reception. Marcus recognized many of them from his 2 years of working at the venue. Titans of industry, celebrated artists, and society figures whose names regularly appeared in the business and culture sections of the newspaper. "You know, Marcus," Wellington said, a hint of amusement entering his voice as he gestured toward the piano, "I've always wondered if any of our staff have hidden musical talents. Do you play at all?" Marcus felt his cheeks warm slightly at the question. "A little, sir. Nothing professional." Wellington's eyebrows raised with interest. "Really? What kind of things can you play?" Before Marcus could answer, Wellington had turned to address the growing crowd of elegantly dressed guests. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, his voice carrying easily through the acoustically perfect hall. "I've just discovered that our custodial staff member, Marcus here, claims to have some piano skills. What do you say we have a little entertainment before the real show begins?" A murmur of amused interest rippled through the crowd. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he realized that Wellington was treating this as a novelty, a bit of light entertainment to amuse the wealthy patrons. Before the serious music began, "Mr. Wellington," Marcus said quietly, "I don't think that would be appropriate. I'm here to work, not to perform." "Nonsense," Wellington declared, clearly enjoying what he saw as harmless fun. It's a gala, after all. Everyone should contribute to the entertainment. Besides, how often do we get to hear what our maintenance staff can do with a $2 million piano? The crowd laughed appreciatively at Wellington's comment. And Marcus could see that several people were already taking out their phones to record what they assumed would be an amusing spectacle. A working-class janitor attempting to play classical music for an audience of cultural sophisticates. Marcus looked out at the sea of expectant faces, many wearing expressions of condescending amusement, and felt something shift inside him. These people saw him as a curiosity, a source of entertainment that would make for a good story at their next cocktail party. They had no idea who he really was, or what he had sacrificed to be here, in this custodial uniform. "What would you like me to play?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. Wellington grinned and gestured grandly toward the piano. "Surprise us. Play whatever you think will impress this distinguished crowd." Marcus walked slowly to the piano bench, his cleaning cloth still clutched in one hand. He set it carefully aside and sat down, adjusting the bench to the proper height, with movements that were automatic. After years of practice, his hands found their familiar position above the keys. And for a moment, Marcus allowed himself to remember who he had been before life had forced him to choose between his dreams and his responsibilities as a father. Marcus began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, Opus 9 No. The first notes floated through the concert hall with a clarity and beauty that immediately transformed the atmosphere, from one of amused anticipation to something approaching reverence. Marcus's fingers moved across the keys with the fluid grace of someone who had spent countless hours perfecting his technique, bringing out every nuance of Chopin's delicate and emotionally complex composition. As the piece progressed, the crowd fell completely silent. The expressions of condescending amusement faded from their faces, replaced by genuine surprise and growing admiration. This was not a janitor stumbling through a simple tune. This was a trained musician performing one of the most beloved pieces in the classical repertoire, with professional skill and deep emotional understanding. Marcus lost himself in the music, feeling the familiar joy of artistic expression that he had denied himself for so long. This was who he truly was beneath the custodial uniform. A classically trained pianist who had given up his performing career to provide stability for his daughter after his wife died in a car accident 4 years earlier. Wellington stood transfixed, watching Marcus's hands dance across the keyboard with a skill that made it clear this was not some hidden hobby, but serious musical training. The CEO's expression had shifted from amused condescension to something approaching awe, as he realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. When Marcus finished the Nocturne, the silence in the hall was profound. For a long moment, no one moved or spoke, as if they were afraid that any sound might break the spell that had been cast by the music. Then Wellington began to applaud, slowly at first, then with increasing enthusiasm. The rest of the crowd followed, their applause building to a standing ovation that echoed through the concert hall with genuine appreciation rather than polite obligation. Marcus stood from the piano bench, his face flushed with the emotion of having shared his gift publicly for the first time in years.